So what should the U.S. do? We're at a critical moment. Everybody who knows me can attest that I'm practical and proactive. So let me put forth some recommendations. The U.S. should intensify its supply of military supplies to the YPG. The area in northern Syria called Rojava, which are the cantons of Afrin, Kobani, and Jazeera, will become contiguous. And the PYD, the political party of the YPG, has proposed a program for decentralizing power from Damascus to its regions. The U.S. should fully support decentralization as a way of fostering democracy and peace and stability in Syria during the transition from Assad's rule to some future governance. The U.S. should delist the PKK as a foreign terrorist organization. I'm not sure they should ever have been put on the FTO list, but surely delisting should be part of an effort to revitalize the peace talks between Ankara and the PKK. There's no military solution to the Kurdish question in Turkey. The U.S. Congress should establish a group, the Friends of Selahattin Demirtas, who is the leader of the HDP, the party in Turkey which represents Kurdish interests, in order to raise awareness of his detention and to highlight concerns about the collapse of democracy in Turkey. He was arrested in Turkey on November 5th. I hope that his representatives here can organize activities on that occasion to launch the Friends of Demirtas and to convene meetings with opinion leaders and policymakers around the crisis of democracy in Turkey, affecting all Turks, not only its Kurdish citizens. If any of Erdoğan's personal security have the chutzpah to actually accompany him to New York for the UN General Assembly, I hope they end up in handcuffs at JFK and end up in the Manhattan Correctional Center alongside Reza Zarrab. Zarrab should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and when the trial begins on October 25th, he should be given the opportunity to sing, to implicate colleagues in Turkey, including Erdoğan and his son Bilal, in exchange for being able to retain some of his assets and for some leniency in a U.S. court. Right now, there's no U.S. ambassador in Ankara. John Bass finished his tour. He hasn't been replaced. The U.S. should not send an ambassador to Turkey until Turkey shows a genuine commitment to reform. There's also a lot of talk about Turkey's suitability as a NATO member. Well, we have to remember that Turkey is not Erdoğan, that Turkey will exist long after Erdoğan is gone. So I have recommended that NATO set up a compliance review committee. This committee would evaluate the democracy criteria that's been used to admit members and would issue a scorecard on each NATO member state annually, assessing their democratic governance. And if a country like Turkey or Hungary receives a failing grade for 2 years in a row, put them in the penalty box, suspend them. There's no place in the North Atlantic Alliance for tyrants and dictators. So having visited Turkey many times, having many Turkish friends who are suffering hardship, who have lost their jobs, who no longer have newspaper columns or can appear on television, I just feel it's time to stop the happy talk about Turkey as an indispensable NATO member or as a valued secular democracy. We need to face the fact that Turkey under Erdoğan has become a rogue regime. We have to see Turkey as it is, not as it was or how we wish it to be. Turkey used to be an important partner of the United States. Under Erdoğan, it's become an uncertain ally. And now Turkey is a strategic adversary. U.S.-Turkish relations will never be restored as long as Erdoğan lives or stays in power. The U.S. policy should focus on regime change, no more kowtowing to dictatorship.